Gather round. It's time for your Real Estate Chalk Talk with the Hittner Group. Listen closely as your coaches discuss the culture, the economy, and the political scene, and how it affects your home and your real estate investments. Real Estate Chalk Talk is where you learn the science of buying and selling real estate and the art of living in your home. Your education begins in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, welcome to the program. This is your Real Estate Chalk Talk with the Hittner Group. HittnerGroup.com, Hittner Group.com, 612-627-8000. That's 612-627-8000. Give us a ring-a-ling-a-ling. Be happy to have a chat with you about your real estate needs. And, of course, that first conversation is all with no cost and absolutely no obligation. All right, kids. Into the 23rd week of the year, looking at the statistics as they stand, active listings, over 7,000 homes on the market.
Went up a little bit.
Yep, it's up 28.9% since the first of the year, up just a skosh from last week, up 130 units from last week. You know what I'm looking at?
That's a lot.
That's kind of interesting. It's called the contract ratio. So it's the ratio between pending sales and active listings. And the high was in 2022 when that number was 188%. So in other words, for every listing there was active on the market, there was almost 1.8, almost two listings that were pending, waiting
Okay.
to close. Right now that number is at 61%.
Oh, so for every listing, there's like a half of one waiting.
Yeah, right. So, or for every pending sale, there's two listings out there that are trying to get sold. And days on market, the absorption rate continues to hold pretty constant over the weeks. Here's the other thing that I'm looking at now. We got the numbers in now because we're good through May, so the May numbers are in. Listings taken this year, 23,876. Listings taken last year through the same date, 22,988. So the listings taken are up 4%. And then we look at sold and closed.
Yep.
They are 14,081. Last year was 14,262, down 1%. So there's a 5% delta there in activity from last year. So the market is clearly slower. We did slip below 1,000 units pending.
Really?
Again, so we are at not much below 998, but still down. So the market is just kind of limping along. It's not going to be the big market like the National Association of Realtors. They're still saying, oh, the market's going to come back and it's going to be great and it's going to be a super duper year. And it will be a nice year, be a good year.
Be really good.
But it's not what you'd call a boom year. And you do have to be very careful about pricing. Here's the other thing. I think the number, I'm just going by memory now, it's 12, almost 13% of the homes last week did price reduction, over 900 price reductions.
Wow.
A lot of price reductions
that,
coming.
Seems to be a lot of national news right now going on for the last couple of weeks at least about the market correction and things slowing and realtors hitting the panic button and all this.
Yeah, well, I don't know about panic button. I think some sellers are hitting the proverbial panic button because they were hoping that they could, have this big boom and this, big money tree that was going to fall out from their address, and reality is kind of set in now with kind of normalized appreciation. 3-5% steady eddy.
It probably won't be that this year, right?
Pardon me?
You think the appreciation will be there this year? Because it seems
4% in the metro.
Really?
Yeah, 4% year to date.
It seems so. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I'm seeing so many price reductions.
Yeah.
People coming in. Making offers under. We're winning multiple offers by just offering the list price.
Right.
Which is interesting.
It's all function. We talk about a lot. It's all a function of the price point. We had a property that came on the market in Lakeville, 350. Sold for $25,000 over the asking price. 5 offers. It's just that's that price point.
And were all the offers, Keith, over the ask price?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, everyone. So then you get to kind of pick and choose.
And what was the price point there?
350. Yeah, 360 actually.
Yeah.
We got 25,000 over.
Hmm.
So
Low.
yeah.
What are you seeing on higher priced homes?
They're pretty slow.
Yeah. right?
Activity is slow.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not just
It is.
movement. It
Isn't just a
activity's slow
move through.
too,
It's just
yeah.
like there's very few showings. You have to hard to make a showing.
Yeah.
Which again, it kind of get back to we
Mm-hmm.
got spoiled. Just like I think real estate agents got spoiled too. They got spoiled by the 3.5% interest rates, which spoiled a lot of buyers. Because they still have that thing, and you got the lock-in effect and all of that that we talk about with preventing people from moving up. But agents got spoiled too, because they were
Yeah.
used to putting homes on the market and then putting them on Friday and then looking at the multiple offers on Sunday and pending it on Monday. And now all of a sudden you're at 60 days market time on those
Right.
properties, on those upper, that's the meat. That's like the median.
And if the sales price was a little higher, it didn't matter that much because rates were so low, it didn't move the payment so
Exactly.
much. So it's just like, yeah, I think we can get a little bit more, and people are like, wow, it didn't matter a whole lot, just write it a little bit more.
Yep.
People are sensitive on that payment right now, and you look at these big properties, Keith, that you have some right now that are on the market. Man, if you're not putting a grip of money down on that payment's
It's up there.
it's $5,000.
Yeah.
4 or 5
I'm
grand.
looking at a lot of homes in like the 8-9 million ish price point right now, and there's a lot of 120-day market times.
Yeah.
150-day market times. Things that came on at the beginning of the year, they're still sitting there. Got some lag from last year. I came across one actually. I spoke with the gentleman in 2022, and I had turned him over to you. You had actually listed the property, and it still hasn't sold. This is 2023. You had it on the market. And then he rented it for a little bit.
Yeah.
Now it's back on the market. It was on the market for 6 months. Now it's back off the market.
Yep.
And it was funny. I just drove out the house. I looked at the house, and I'm like, I remember this house. And it's just not moving. Like things aren't really moving in that price point. It's taking some time. So it has to have this just unique something about it. Like,
Right.
It's like a very nice backyard that's all private. In that price point, you have to have something.
Right.
Because people are being very discerning.
There's a lot of big square boxes with bedrooms and big square footage.
Right.
If you don't have something that's setting that house apart, like you said, a unique characteristic that people can't find someplace else.
Yeah.
They're being very, very particular about it. And I mean, let's face it, when you're spending that kind of money, you expect it to be pretty doggone nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by putting stuff on the market at that price point where that's dated, like an older style kitchen or older style this, that, or the other thing, whatever it is, people walk in there and they're going, what the heck are they thinking about? I have to put $200,000 into this place
Right.
to get it up to today's standard.
Yep.
I'm excited for this weekend. I am out shopping around with some folks that I've been waiting for their house to sell, and it's sold. And so now we're going to go out this weekend, and it's like $300,000 to $400,000. That's our price point, cash purchase. And they want something small, manageable, very nice though. And so I'm looking there's one property on Forest Lake that's coming on the market Saturday. It's on the lake, and it's like $399 or something. So that'll go in multiple offers. And they really like that one. And then we'll be in, St. Anthony, and we'll be in like Inver Grove, and we're looking all over the metro. So it's quite different than, say we need to be in the school district, and you have to, it takes forever for one property to come on the market. Here, they're just like, I suggested, 20 miles from the airport, because they say we don't really care where we live. We could live anywhere. We just want something that's smaller, like a more efficient property. And we want it to be very nice. We don't want to fix it up. We want it to be ready to go. So we have options. There's a lot of options. I think we're going to look at 15 houses or something like this that we have pegged that are all, 1,200 to 1,500 square feet, very nice and good condition, across the metro area. So it's just kind of different.
Well,
That'll be kind of fun. Do a little milk run.
Yeah,
huh?
there'll be some competition there too.
Yeah.
So it's not like an offer I'm making on a house that's $1 million, and we'll offer less, and we'll come together on something. 'Cause it's been on for 155 days, and very nice home. But this one it'll be a little bit more challenging this weekend to find something that fits. That's great, and we're gonna have to win.
But, cash wins.
It
Not
helps.
really.
Yeah, it helps.
Right?
Yeah, it helps.
It helps. It puts you, if you all things being equal, and you got two offers side by side,
Yep.
one's cash, of course, cash wins.
Yeah, it removes,
But a
it
seller's
removes
not
some
going
of
to take less.
Yeah, it removes some
Yep.
of the contingency.
Yeah.
Yep.
We have last weekend we did, or last week, Keith, you were gone. I did a breakdown of analysis by price point, and it was surprising to see in the price point that you're looking at. That was the largest number of homes on the market were in that price point.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Yeah, there's plenty to choose from.
There is.
Paralysis by analysis. We're going to head out to break here. This is Real Estate Chalk Talk. Call us 612-627-8000. That number again is 612-627-8000. Or log on to our website, as always, hittnergroup.com.
Hey, welcome back to the program. We've got Mike Hilborn on the show. This is Real Estate Chalk Talk with the Hittner Group, hittnergroup.com, Hittner Group.com. RTD Services, I just want to get that plug in before we get rolling here. RTD Services, rtdservices.com. Give us a little rundown of what that's all about and what your background is on the company.
Yeah. So RTD Services is a power washing company, spring, summer, fall, and then pretty much snow plowing in the wintertime. So we power wash and stain wood decks, fences, gazebos, porches, cedar shake roofs, things like that. We do what's called mobile fleet washing, so we wash trucks for FedEx, Coca-Cola, 2 Men in a Truck, where we actually go to them. We carry 1,000 gallons of water. We have reclaim systems because we don't want any dirty water getting into lakes, rivers, and streams. We wash parking garages, big ones, U of M, 3M, Abbott, Hospital, gigantic, they're awesome. And then every new apartment or condo or townhouse or anything gets an underground parking garage, seems to be these days. Mm-hmm. So we wash those. And if you don't wash them, all that salt gets in there and wrecks the concrete and all that stuff. So that's basically our summer business, or like I say, spring, summer, fall. We do Christmas lighting. We design, install Christmas lights. We do a lot of that. And then snow plowing. We do residential in like Roseville area and commercial, actually quite a few in Eagan, and then throughout Minneapolis and St. Paul.
That's a seasonally driven business. Nice business to be in. Long time you've been doing it, too.
Yeah, 30. Yeah, the August 14th will be 30 years.
30 years.
Yeah,
Good
right?
job, man.
Yeah, thanks.
And that is based, you're based
long.
out of St. Paul.
Yeah.
Okay, so rtdservices.com. If you're curious about it, check it out. Check out the website. So you are running for mayor of the city of St. Paul.
Yep.
Seems like a suicide run to me.
That's what everybody says. Maybe it is.
We'll see.
Why are you running?
Well, okay, so specific, yeah, it's always interesting because your life leads down a path, right?
Yeah.
You just take that next step, and then, kind of what's the next step after that.
Yeah.
And last year, I'm in 65B of St. Paul, and I was, the house, I ran for the house because my opponent was going to run unopposed, and nobody wanted to run. I mean, so there wasn't a primary, there wasn't anything. It was like, okay,
Sign up.
There's Mike, he'll do it, so done, In fact, it was kind of funny when I did this, that you go to this, they call it a convention, which means 4 people, and they say, Mike here he wants to run. He goes, Mike, why don't you say, oh, never mind, we'll just vote. It's like, well, wait a minute, let me say something,
Yeah.
and give me my story,
Yeah.
And so anyway, so I ran for that, and it was, right up front, they're like, Mike, there is no chance on this earth that you're going to win. None. So don't even think for a second you're going to win. It's like, no, that's not even why I'm running. I'm running because she's running unopposed. And, I mean, how about no pressure? That's the easiest thing in the world,
Right.
But knocked on doors, did a couple forums. She didn't show up for either one of them. Did some, mailed out some postcards and did all the stuff.
And she did nothing and won.
Yeah. I mean, there was no way she was going to lose.
Yeah.
I mean, so why would you?
Yeah.
Lost, but I got 23% of the vote,
Okay.
and versus 21 last time. So that's kind of a win. My goal was 31. I really did want to get to 31.
All right.
And I met some really nice people, and that was fun. Okay, so done. That was it. Mission accomplished, so to speak. Anyway, a few weeks after the election, my landlord came to me, and he's the best landlord I've ever had. Comes to me, he said, Mike, we need to talk as soon as possible. Your lease is up for renewal May 1st, so a month ago. And the rent's going up, and I want to make sure you have time to find a new place if you decide to leave, and I need to find somebody to take the spot if you do leave. So he came in maybe a week or two after that, brought in all his tax papers, showed him, like, Mike, look what's happening here in St. Paul. And your rent is going up $5,000 a month, so from $17,000 to $22,000. And I'm not going anywhere. But I'm like, That's just a lot of money. And then not only that, and then every year's increase is 4%. 2 sounds reasonable. 3 probably okay, but 4, 20% 5 years from now higher. Oh my gosh. Anyways, okay. Well, you know what? Not everybody is going to be able to make that happen.
No,
right? And
that means your business has to grow by that.
Oh my gosh!
Just to stay even,
right? Yeah, and you know how much revenue you have to bring in to make another 5,000. You guys know, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I would like to run for mayor. So then I called a whole bunch of people. Nobody called me back, except one guy, a guy named Kip Christensen, and I told him kind of my story and that we're a second chance employer. We've talked about that, and he really liked that. And he said, I think we can put a team together. So that's what we did. A bunch of people are helping me.
Now, who was this gentleman?
There was a guy named Dan Hall that was a representative in Burnsville a few years ago. And when I was running for House, somebody said you should talk to him. And he gives you a bunch of ideas and notes and thoughts on how to run. And he's one of the guys I reached out to. It's like, Dan, is there anybody that you know that would coach me on this? And then he said Kip Christensen, who's a guy that kind of helps people do campaigns kind of thing.
Okay.
And Kip's...
Is that his business? Or?
Kind of is, yeah. And
Okay.
he's actually on the city council up in Monticello, so he's away. So he's involved in politics and all that stuff. And he gets paid for this normally. He says, Mike, I'll be a super volunteer, but I get a little teeny bit out of his time. He's really busy. But anyway, so that's kind of what started the whole process. And then since then, I've just been, talking to a whole bunch of people, restaurant owners, business owners, parades. You guys were in the parade. Thanks for coming and doing that. It was awesome. Just meeting people, and it's been really, really
How's that
pretty
been?
fun.
How have the conversations been?
Yeah, I would say, like 95% like really good, and then 5% that, still pro Melvin Carter, which is fine. I always say, well, he's your guy. You should vote for him. If you like him, vote for him. But a lot of people are like, okay, we just can't do another 4 years of this because he's been in it for 8 years, and St. Paul, and we can talk about some details, but St. Paul has really declined, and I think 2 terms is enough for anybody.
What you mean declined? What do you mean by that?
Well, okay, so property taxes for most people in St. Paul just went up 15 to 30%. I mean, that's insane. Businesses are leaving in droves. And nobody's coming in, and I can give you reasons why. There's empty office towers that have now been condemned. There was a particular one where they literally gave people like a week's notice, like, okay, you got to get out of here. We're closing this thing down. You got to move your business in a week, stuff like that.
How do you tackle
crime
that?
is bad and all that stuff.
On taxes, how do you tackle that? What do you do?
Okay, so I there's think tanks, right? You're familiar with that a little bit. And there's one in Minnesota that's really good. And I went to those guys. I said, okay, why does St. Paul have to be the most expensive place in Minnesota to run a business? And it literally is the most expensive place
More
in
than
St.
Minneapolis.
St. Paul's sales tax is 9.88%.
Yes.
9.88. It's crazy. Minneapolis is 9.03. Remember when Minneapolis was like the bad city and St. Paul was like, well, it's not too bad?
Yeah.
Totally flipped. I just had a conversation with a lady the other day. She goes, man, I miss St. Paul being boring so much. It used to be. Now it's just way too exciting with crime and all this stuff going on. So are you going to start a business in St. Paul if it's the most expensive place in Minnesota to start a business?
No.
Of course you're not. I'll go across the river and I'll open at West St. Paul. I'll go to Roseville, go to Maplewood, go to Burnsville. You'll go anywhere but St. Paul. And the climate, and it's interesting too because I talk to guys. I say, Mike, okay, just between you and me, okay, just because. Assuming I lose, right? I mean, I have a chance of winning. That's the fun part this time is like, they're not telling me, Mike, you're no way going to win. It's like, Mike, you could do this.
You could win.
So that is fun. And I've heard it from a number of different people, like quite a few actually. So there's a shot here. But everybody's a little cautious. It's like, Mike, I'm going to support you 100%, but I got to stay on the down low because if you don't win, I don't need what might happen. Or,
And what might happen?
Well, you just make their life miserable, that kind of thing. You can go after people, and that happens. You know that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, people go after people. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I see a little bit of that out there right now.
So go back to Keith's question here on how do you lower tax?
Okay, so this organization that I talked to, I said, why can't St. Paul be the least expensive and the most affordable place to run a business? He goes, Mike, it totally can. Absolutely can. You just got to change the policies. So there's a number of policies, and too much to go into here, and I still need to learn more about it. But there's so many policies that just keep driving the price of running a business up, right? if we have infrastructure, rail, light rail, we got public transportation. We have a small regional airport right across the river. We got Minneapolis International, St. Paul, 10, 15 minutes away. If you were going to run a business, that's where you'd want to run it.
Right.
Is in St. Paul.
And the state capital's right there.
State capital. It's got it all.
All the government's there.
Everything's right there. 35E, 94. Everything's crisscrossing right through it. That's why I put my business there. It's in the center of like everything. And back in the day, 30 years ago, or 20, 10, I guess, really, because I moved there 10 years in this spot 10 years ago. But I've been in St. Paul the whole time, like literally the whole time. So yeah, you got to bring down taxes, and then that brings in business. And you also have to. We have to tackle this crime thing.
Okay, I still don't know what you can do to lower taxes.
You've got it.
What policy could you change? Like day one, you go, you know what? If I win, I do this immediately.
There's tax incentives and different things that you can do to make it possible for businesses to choose to move to St. Paul.
Okay.
So, here's an example. So St. Paul, if you have a business, your property tax is 3% of the value of the property. Okay, a house is 1%. Okay, so every business that leaves takes with them 3 times as much property taxes that then goes on to all the residential houses, right? And then people, retirees specifically, are getting taxed out of their homes. There was a hotel, Bandana Square. Remember Bandana Square?
Yeah.
There was a hotel at Bandana Square. Okay, here it is. It's a business. It's charging taxes. They just sold to a nonprofit.
Right.
Okay, 20% of the commercial properties in St. Paul are nonprofits because the businesses are leaving. NGOs, maybe not so much now, but because of all the thing, they had plenty of cash, so they're paying top dollars for these things.
We're gonna have to break.
Yeah.
Politicians speak over here, and when we come back, you're gonna answer the question. You're getting there, and we'll wrap it up. 612-627-8000, HittnerGroup.com. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to your Real Estate Chalk Talk with the Hittner Group. We're speaking with Mike Hilborn, running for St. Paul mayor. I got a friend of mine who owns a lot of properties, a lot of rental properties, thousands of doors. He's selling. He's already cleared. I had dinner with him. They cleared out everything out of Minneapolis, and now they're in the process of clearing everything out of St. Paul, and selling to whoever they can sell to, commercial properties and just getting out because it just doesn't make financial sense, and they can take that money then and roll it into properties in the suburbs or in other areas and other properties. That has a huge impact on the city because some of these things are being sold to nonprofits who are buying apartment buildings and single-family homes, taking those properties off the tax rolls. I think you were mentioning that before. So you were in the process of answering the question of what policies that you could do that would immediately impact the health of St. Paul.
The property taxes.
Yeah. You have to have policies that encourage businesses in. When we can get businesses in, their property taxes are higher than the average around them. That will start driving taxes down because now you have more money.
For residents.
For residents and every other business, right? So we have to bring businesses back.
So do you do tax incentives? What do you do specifically to draw my business now into St. Paul?
There's certain policies. One of them that's interesting. We don't have to get into it too far, I suppose, but St. Paul, Minneapolis has a $15 per hour minimum wage, right? Just right across the street, it's $10.88, okay? And you will not pay somebody $15 an hour if the work that they're doing is $12 or $10 an hour work, right? I pay all my guys starting at $25 an hour. Okay, well, and then it's like, well, why do you pay $25 an hour? Why don't you pay 15 or 10? Well, because these jobs, no one's going to do it for $15 an hour. Yeah, these are hard jobs that take some capacity, some experience, some life knowledge to be able to pull off. So you need people to be able to get a job that don't have any experience, that never worked before, and then get paid what they're kind of worth, if you will, so to speak, right? Until they gain
get paid
experience.
What the job is worth.
Yeah, what the job is, and then they gain the experience, and then they move up. So
you're saying remove the $15 minimum wage? Is that
I'm
a
not
policy?
sure I can say that, but if you know what I mean. So, but it's those kinds of. That's an example of kind of the mindset of the leadership in St. Paul. Is you have to make decisions that are pro-business friendly, because if you don't, businesses are smart. They will leave. I just saw an article yesterday that Minnesota is losing residents that make $25,000 or more are fleeing the state of Minnesota. Okay, so we're going to have
$25,000.
Not even
A
very
year?
much a year. So it doesn't sound like, but below $25,000 a year, people are moving into Minnesota. Okay, well they're not covering their costs, kind of thing, sort of thing. And again, smart people are going to leave, and Minnesota's going to have one fewer congressional seat next year because Minnesota is losing population, not gaining it, and that goes along with Illinois, New York, California, and
all the blue states.
Bunch of them. Yeah, it's like people without business. I know, we have to have a nice home to live in, and we need to have crime-free streets. I mean, I talked to too many people. Said my garage has been broken into 3 times in the last year and a half. That kind of thing. No, that's not going to have people move in. St. Paul, they're the 6th of the 6 largest cities in Minnesota. Only one has lost population specifically, and that's St. Paul. Overall population. So
I'm
we gotta
bringing my
change the
business.
policies.
So I'm bringing my business in, and you're going to give me a tax break to come in to attract me.
I'm going to do what I can to get taxes to make business a St. Paul affordable and a good idea for the long run. Because I also see these things where we'll do a tax break for 3 years. Well, 3
What
years?
happens then?
What happens then exactly?
Yeah, we signed a 10-year lease. Then what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it has to be forever. There has to be an attitude of like this is a great place to run a business.
So why do you think then when you're so we're on a radio show now, we're broadcasting obviously outside of St. Paul. Why would people in Eagan or outside of St. Paul care about the St. Paul mayoral race?
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so just that because I've been asking that question too. Well, okay, here's the way I would look at it: is that we live in Minnesota. Okay, most beautiful state. We love here. Don't we all love it here? I love St. Paul. I love living in St. Paul. I just don't want it to get worse. I love Minnesota. We need to have the capital of our beautiful state reflect what Minnesota is, right? So we all need St. Paul to be prosperous and beautiful and flourishing and someplace to go. The capital is downtown St. Paul. It's our capital. It's every single person in Minnesota's capital city. I think that's why you do it.
Okay.
It's like going to Washington, D.C.
But the only people in St. Paul can vote, though,
Yeah, that's
for
right.
you, right?
Yep,
Okay.
that's-
Shoot.
yep.
Yeah. So we can't.
Okay, so as you've been going through now,
I'm moving to St. Paul.
Yeah, you're going to move
I'm
to
moving
St. Paul
to St. Paul
just so you
right
can
now,
vote.
so I can vote.
What's the most interesting part about the well, I'm a two-part question.
Yeah.
First of all, when you look at the job as mayor, you've got a business to run, RTD Services. You've got a business to run. How much time does the mayor spend being mayor?
Well, the mayor it's a full-time job.
Okay.
So the mayor is a full-time job. The city council is part-time. So it is a fact that it is. I'm 62 years old. Okay, I've had my business for 30 years. I've got some really strong management. Basically, my job right now is sales. Is really all I do now. Everybody else is kind of running it. I think I have the bandwidth to do both.
Okay, and then have you looked at the day-to-day tasks and all that stuff of being mayor? Entail.
Well, you're in charge of fire, police, water, and a number of different agencies, right? And then all those people have figureheads and that sort of thing. So it's just going to be like managing other.
Sounds like a lot of meetings to me.
Yeah, it's a lot of meetings, and it's making sure people know what direction they're supposed to go in, and and then you have to have measurements, right? Things that you're reporting back on to see if we're going up or down, that sort of thing.
When you look at your last few years, you've run for Minnesota House and you've run for a couple things. What's the most interesting part of it to you?
Well, you get to do fun stuff. I think everybody should run for mayor at least once. I've spoken to 2 different mosques.
Really?
Yeah, and they're like, and they want so they have the prayers and their sermon, so to speak. I think that's probably what it is. And then at the end, they say, hey, no, don't everybody leave. Mike's Hilborn's running for mayor, and we'd like him to take a minute. And then you address them kind of thing. And then the one I was at a couple weeks ago afterwards, the imam, he goes, Mike, you have to win. You absolutely, we got it. We're going to do whatever we can to help you win, kind of thing. Well, that's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a neat thing. And then same with a friend of mine who's kind of a new friend. It's amazing the connections you make, And he introduced me to a guy named Sheila, who's a leader in the Hmong community. And so met with him, and we had breakfast, and then we had lunch, and he goes, Mike, if you ask me to help you with your campaign. I will help you with your campaign. Sheila, would you please help me with my campaign? I will help you with your campaign. And he sent like 10 people to our launch event last Thursday. And then they said, okay, Mike, they're going to check you out, then they're going to kind of whatever, and then after a couple of weeks they might decide what they think. But right at the end of the night, because it was a really fun night, I wish you guys had been there. They all took pictures together, like, we are supporting you all the way. We're going to do everything we can. Well, that's just awesome. And then you just talk to all these different people. I was buying a clipboard. I was at the Grand Old Day Parade on Sunday, and I had to buy a clipboard. Went into Walgreens, and the manager, I think she was the only one there. I said, hey, how's the crime? She goes, oh, it's unbelievable bad. Is people just walk in, grab stuff, and go. She goes, there is a particular individual guy that has a warrant for his arrest. She knows this. He has a warrant. He comes in, grabs toilet paper, and turns around. And the police know he's coming. We know him. They don't do anything about it.
Why?
Another example. Okay, so I was talking to a couple.
But why?
No. Here's the answer.
Okay.
I'll give you the answer. So a couple of restaurant owners. I was talking to this one particular restaurant. And he goes, there was some guy that came down and just broke a whole bunch of windows, and so they found him. They got him arrested. They put him in jail overnight. The next morning, the prosecutor let him go. What is that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, no. Answer is no. You don't get to break windows and go away. You're going to pay some sort of cost to that. There's got to be consequences. I mean, we all know that. If you let your kids run wild, they're going to run wild.
They're going to run wild.
Yeah, you have to have some discipline. Hold people accountable.
And they don't.
No, the stories are endless.
So then the police get disheartened because they're like, well, why would we go and arrest him? Because the prosecutor's just going to let him go
the
tomorrow.
next day.
I'm just going to go over to the coffee shop and have a cup of coffee. If somebody shoots somebody, okay, I'll be there. But if someone's stealing or robbing or breaking windows, I'm not going to.
So what do you do in that? So what do you do as mayor?
Oh, I'm telling you, I'm going to be on the news every night. I'm going to be on the news every day. If that happens, WCC will come on down because you're going to hear the mayor say, look what we just did again. We did it again. I don't think we should do that and get some public pressure going because there's no way. You can't do that.
Mike Hilborn, where can they learn about your campaign? You got a website?
So it's hillbornforstpaul.com, hillbornforstpaul.com. And, if you have a lot of extra money, I could use just a little bit of it, a little bit. Because this whole
is
thing
there a place to donate right on the website?
There is. And now we're into that part of the campaign where that's
money.
becoming kind of a big deal.
Okay. Well, head to MikeHilborn.com.
Hillbornforstpaul.com.
Hillborn for St. Paul.
I wasn't listening. Hillbornforstpaul.com.
Yeah, ST. No, we don't have to spell it St. STPaul.com.